More European countries are retreating from their harsh stance on the government of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. The German Chancellor Angela Merkel says that President Assad must be involved in any talks aimed at ending the conflict in Syria. Merkel also cited Iran and Saudi Arabia as two important regional partners which Berlin needs to talk to in connection with the crisis in Syria. She made the remarks following an EU summit in Brussels. The French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius suggested earlier this month that a diplomatic solution to Syria's crisis is impossible without Assad. Tony Gosling is an investigative journalist who joins us to tell us what he thinks. So Tony Gosling, we have at this point France, we have the U.S. kind of changed their tune about when Assad should go, and just before we came on this broadcast, we had breaking news that Turkey has come out and said the precondition of Assad going for any political solution, well, they don't hold that stance anymore. What do you think has happened here?
Well, I mean, what's happened is this fundamental contradiction which has been running for the last year has finally reached the ears and the minds of some of the political leaders in the West. I mean, as soon as we stopped supporting the moderate Syrian rebels and started realised that they'd become this monstrosity called ISIS, the contradiction inherent in that, which was that actually if we wanted to fight ISIS, we're going to have to do deals with Assad, possibly even fight alongside Assad, has finally sunk in. That's why I'm afraid it seems to take an interminable amount of time for basic logic, which is talked about in the bars of New York and the pubs in Britain, to reach some of our leaders nowadays, not least of which is the fact that what's been going on in Syria and caused this massive refugee crisis, enormous refugee camps in Lebanon, in Jordan and in Turkey, which have opened up recently, leading to mass migrations across Europe, is really a spin-off of the Arab Spring of 2010. And if you go look back at those days, Roland Dumas, the French Foreign Minister, has said that he was approached by the British actually in 2009, a year before it all kicked off across the Arab world, saying they wanted to start an armed uprising with the French in Syria. So it does seem as if all of this has been cooked up by the Western imperialists, the Western elite here in Europe.
Do you think that the refugee crisis, the asylum seeker crisis, has anything to do with this?
Well, absolutely. You know, it's one of those things that the politicians can't ignore because it's right on our doorstep. It's very easy using the media to sort of prepare the public and the politicians in the West for things that are going on far away. But as soon as it starts coming home to their doorstep, then they have to actually do something about it. And it's really good to hear that this 1 billion euros is being set aside to help with the asylum seekers. But what would have been much better was to not start these insurgencies going in the Middle East, which have caused this in the first place. And there are several people, not least of which is a guy called Andrew Karibko, who's pointed out that why is it that it's just literally a couple of months ago that the Turks suddenly decided they didn't have enough money to keep the refugees in the refugee camps and then started closing those refugee camps down. So that's one of the reasons, I think, why we've had the refugee crisis now in Europe, not the direct result of the war that's been going on in Syria, but because those refugee camps have been closed down. There's been very little coverage of that angle on things and why the Turks decided to do that right at this moment at all.
Thank you for that. Tony Gosling, investigative journalist from Bristol.